It's Thursday, November 29th. I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Football Show. It is a hell of a day to talk ball, and joining me to do just that is playing a little sick today, playing a little hurt, not at 100%, but nevertheless, still with us is Dalton Don himself. Dalton, what's going on, buddy?
As you said, dealing with a bit of a cold today, and I hope your Thanksgiving was better than mine. The Packers knocked me out as Survivor, which is extra frustrating because the Titans followed through with the win, but you guys will mercifully not have to listen to my Survivor talk any longer. I'm alive in my every other league I'm in, but the one that's 9.3 million, I'm out thanks to the Thanksgiving Day slate, and the 8.5 point favorite Lions just got boat raced, frankly. Thoroughly outplayed.
Oh yeah, thoroughly outplayed. Didn't we talk about that in that game that the Packers, or in the preview, that the Packers have started to play a little bit better and stuff like that?
Yeah, but I'd already used the Cowboys, and I would have not gotten that far without them. And you have to use a Thanksgiving slate. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Use the Packers as dogs, 8.5. But yeah, they've lost 7 straight games, the Lions, on Thanksgiving now, and that was our fears certainly came to fruition for me because Jordan Love playing better, hitting Christian Watson more in the first drive than basically they had all year. But yeah, you'll no longer have to hear me complain about Survivor as it's officially over. Only 60 people left, so it's getting real for the 9.3 mil. But yeah, man, how was your Thanksgiving?
My Thanksgiving was good. It was definitely chaotic. We hosted 2 days in a row, so it was a chaotic couple of days for us. But hey, all good. Enjoyed it. Happy to be back in the regular schedule here for the podcast, and just a full-on Stat Nerd Thursday with you, buddy. That's what I'm really thankful for here. And without further ado, I don't want to keep you here, forever while you're battling this cold. So let's get right into it, buddy. On to Stat Nerd Thursday. You know how we do it here. It is one stat you need to know for all 32 teams. We go in order of the projected 2024 NFL draft according to Tankathon. And that brings us to where we've started so often on this show, a team that's been in the news the past week, the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young, in the 3 games that Thomas Brown called plays, had a 2-3 touchdown interception ratio, a 5.5 YPA, and he took 13 sacks. I included this to say that Dalton, Frank Reich is gone. I don't think anything is changing this year.
Yeah, out of 431 qualified QB seasons since 2011, Bryce Young is currently 431st in yards per dropback. That's not good. Tepper is mispronouncing Reich's name twice in his press conference. I don't know what's going on, but it looks like Carolina has another situation where their owner is going to be a problem. That's basically my takeaway. And Bryce Young, yeah, he doesn't pass the eye test. The stats are bad. His size. It's the future looks bleak and you pointed out the outside receivers. No one can get open on the Panthers are the worst. So, it's frustrating if you're a Panther fan right now.
It's really frustrating. And, it's kind of funny because Frank Reich was getting a lot of crap. And I don't think he was doing a great job. And I think, honestly, in hindsight, the fact that they assembled this staff from like all different backgrounds actually was kind of a bad idea. It was like, let's get a rock star coaching staff. But Thomas Brown comes from a very different tree and does things very differently than Frank Reich does things. It's not a coincidence that Reich gets swept out and then Deuce Staley and Josh McCown get swept out with him, because those guys are all kind of from the same philosophical tree. McCown played under Reich in Philadelphia, or was on the staff, there, or not on the staff. He was on, I think, like the practice squad or whatever, but he had experience with Reich. Deuce Staley had experience with Reich. Thomas Brown didn't. He's still there. He'll be the play caller. Jim Caldwell didn't have experience with him. He's still there. All those guys. So it was just a really bad kind of setup, because I don't think Frank Reich was doing a great job, but I also don't think like they have just Bryce Young in a very normal NFL offense. It's very traditional drop back stuff, 11 personnel. It's definitely static. It could be a lot more creative, and that's kind of where I think the Panthers need to go next, is finding someone. I don't know if it's going to be, if any of these guys like Thomas Brown will be here next year, but it's finding someone like a Sean McVay to a Jared Goff that can come in and kind of be super creative, like a Mike McDaniel to a Tua, and try to elevate him. But, Goff is a more apt comparison, because this one, it just has been that bad of a rookie season.
People were excited about Josh McCown at one point, weren't they? But I guess, yeah.
Well,
fired.
The people being, what was the guy's name? I've already blanked him from my mind. But the crazy pastor culture coach, with the Houston Texans. Jack Easterby. Jack Easterby was the guy that like had snuck in there and gotten himself like personnel power, despite the fact he was like the team chaplain for the Patriots or some weird stuff like that. And he wanted to hire Josh McCown, just skip to the front of the line and become a head coach. And that was a pretty bad idea at the time. So I think McCown, maybe he'll resurface somewhere, but this was just a nightmare situation.
Yep, no doubt.
All right, moving on here. Number 2 team, Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are 4th in the league in neutral pass rate since Kyler Murray returned. They were 32nd in weeks 1 to 9, which I think it says something. I think it says that they have a lot of faith in, obviously they were doing run first stuff with Josh Dobbs, who we'll get to with the Vikings later on here. But I think it shows they have a lot of faith in Kyler Murray as a drop back passer. It hasn't been great. I think he's coming off his worst performance so far, but I think it shows a little something there that they have a lot of faith in Murray as a traditional quarterback. Also, last week was a season low. 42% of the snaps were James Conner and just 10 touches.
Yeah, Murray benefited from some garbage time last week, and it continues to run in a score for fantasy managers. But he also had just one rushing attempt last week, took a major step back passing-wise. You think it's just bound to happen, he's coming off the knee surgery. But I was very encouraged, maybe outside of that Cliff Kingsbury system, that he's going to become a more efficient quarterback. But, 7.1 YPA, 5.7 last week hasn't been as great. And again, he was really benefited from garbage time stats last week, or it would have been a bad fantasy game. So, I guess it just comes with the territory of returning from major knee surgery.
Right. New system. And also like the guys around him, it's Marquise Brown and who was super hobbled coming into that game. I'm honestly kind of surprised he played. Trey McBride's been great, but like Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch and these guys, that's not a serious wide receiver room. They do need Michael Wilson back. And I'm interested to see what that offense looks like when Michael Wilson is fully healthy and because I can think the guy can play a little bit. All right. Number 3 team, New England Patriots. Over the last 3 games, the Patriots rank 2nd in rushing success rate and 3rd in EPA per rush, which is a great reminder maybe why the run game just doesn't really matter when you don't have an efficient passing attack, because great, we've been awesome as a rushing team. The offense is still absolutely unwatchable because their pass game is completely broken. But from a pure fantasy perspective, Ramondre Stevenson has popped up over the last 3 games. 50 carries, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns, 16 targets. Zeke has been, kind of working in as well. 28 carries, 117 yards, and 9 targets.
How dare you disparage Greg Dortch, by the way, the greatest celebration of the season, down big last week, the too small. Yeah. Ramondre Stevenson has absolutely seen his fantasy value increase. Came out of the bye. He got the post-bye bump in snap share. The targets have really been there, 6, 6, 4, 6, 5, and 5. Even though it's an offense that projects to be, again, one of the lowest scoring of this week, implied team total, I think around 17. I ranked him as my 15th fantasy back. I think Stevenson, his efficiency metrics are finally picking up, not unlike Tony Pollard after a slower start to the season. And they just rely on them like crazy with the quarterback, whomever starting at quarterback, New England wants to hide him.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder if at some point they just throw Will Grier out there. I mean, it's a nice matchup this week with the Chargers. Nice matchup for Demario Douglas if he can play as well, if you need like somebody to pick up off the waiver wire to play.
Yeah, how impressive were his metrics you posted? That seemed almost eye-opening against man and whatnot.
Yeah, I think he's definitely still like a short area receiver for the most part. Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas, but he can get open. He can run routes, and he can do more than just like bunny hop slot receiver stuff. Like he's not a Wan'Dale Robinson type of, little, as the Underdog Bros call it, the PPR scam. He's not, I would say he's more than a PPR scam receiver. At first, I thought that might be kind of the archetype of player he is, but the more I've seen of him and the more I've charted the routes for Douglas, I think he's a legit player.
Yeah, good to know, and that's a wide open receiving group for them to take over too. So, that was worth noting because I lumped him with Wan'Dale Robinson myself.
Bill Belichick may have finally got himself, maybe it's his last act as the Patriots head coach, but he finally got our wide receiver pick right in Demario Douglas, and it's a 6th round guy. I think did they take him after Kayshon Boutte too? I can't remember, but I mean Kayshon Boutte is like. I don't think he's going to be good, but they got Demario Douglas right. So there is that. All right. 4th team here, Chicago Bears, Season high 74% of the snaps for Roschon Johnson, 15 touches along with that snap share. Meanwhile, just 21% for Khalil Herbert and 8 touches for Herbert. Is this hey, it's finally time to get a look at Roschon Johnson because, we're evaluating for the future, or is this random?
I think it may have had something to do with the blitz-heavy defense they were facing, and my guy Herbert is not as good in pass protection there. But I don't know. I know there's a faction of the internet that loves Roschon Johnson, but again, 3.5 yards per carry, fumbled the ball. Herbert, the highest rush yards over expectation in the league last season. I don't really know what's going on here. I think partially it had to do with pass protection, and Minnesota, I think the second heaviest blitz team in the league. But Johnson can look good at times, especially on those dump offs, whatever, for PPR. But I don't know what to do here. It's a backfield, and then what if Foreman returns? I don't know.
Right.
You can't rely on any of them right now. You don't want to be relying on any of these guys down the stretch.
Yeah, the Bears are on bye in week 13. Then they come back and they get the Lions, the Browns, the Cardinals, the Falcons, and the Packers to close out the season. There's a couple spots there where I might want to use a running back, but I'm with you that I am skeptical that we'll be coming out of the bye and be like, all right, Roschon Johnson is ready to rock. I'm skeptical of that.
Yeah.
All right, number 5 team, Washington Commanders. The Commanders are officially bottoming out now. They're firing coaches. They're getting smashed on Thanksgiving. They are, they're picking 5th in the draft if it happened today. My stat here is on Sam Howell, who leads the NFL in passing yard. I never heard that stat before. Heard it so much. But out of quarterbacks with 200 attempts, he ranks 24th in adjusted net yards per attempt, 20th in passer rating, 4th highest turnover-worthy play percentage, and he has the highest pressure to sack percentage. He's just middle of the pack in terms of time to pressure. Those stats all come from Fantasy Points data. I mean, come on, bro. Sam Howell is not the answer in Washington. Ron Rivera gave a press conference recently. They said, what are you proud of with the team? And, because I think everybody knows it's about to be over for Ron Rivera. And he said, well, we changed the culture, which is definitely true. But then he said, and we found our franchise quarterback for this team. And no, you didn't. Sam Howell is like a Baker Mayfield-esque backup low-end starter maybe, but there's nothing here in terms of future franchise quarterback.
You were probably right there, but man, for fantasy, he is getting it done in a big way. And the Commanders are throwing a league high almost 75% when trailing by a touchdown this year, and they're big dogs against the Dolphins this week. Sorry, so he runs. So the weird thing about Howell is the volume, and then yet he is not. If you were to say he's going to lead the league in passing yards, but McLaurin, Dotson were both going to be disappointments, it wouldn't have made any sense. But that's really what's happened here. But I'm not going to push back and say that he is their franchise quarterback. But boy, for fantasy, he's been money, and he will continue to be down the stretch here just because of the volume.
Yeah, I think he rocks for fantasy, and I think on a different offense, for example, if he was in Tampa right now, and Baker Mayfield wasn't, if he's not in this Eric Bieniemy offense, which I've said I'm not that big of a fan of, but clearly they want to throw the piss out of the ball. But if he was in an offense where, all right, we've got just a couple of good pass catchers and he's going to push it and he's going to be aggressive, I think he could take like a very Ryan Fitzpatrick type of way. He could take Mike Evans to the moon, like Baker Mayfield has taken Mike Evans to the moon, because he's just going to lock in on one guy. It's a bad combination in this offense with this type of I'm going to write checks that my arm can't cash type of consistently thing for I almost called him Baker Mayfield, for Sam Howell. I think it's a problematic combination for these receivers.
Yeah, he reminds me of the same player, the quarterback Mayfield. Bieniemy, man, I warned you after week 1. I was a little worried when they nearly lost to Arizona and I had him in Survivor.
Right.
Yeah, and he's been hasn't been great there. They're probably going to clean house, you think, after the end of the year?
Yeah, I think they will. The fact that they haven't even given Eric Bieniemy a look, I think if there was a chance that he was a legit head coaching candidate for this team, or that he was going to stick around, I think they would have just fired Ron Rivera and been hey, let's give Eric Bieniemy a look for 3 games or whatever. And look, it's only week 13. There's maybe a chance they could still do that, but I think if we get to week 18 and they haven't, then he's going to be gone with all these other guys. So yeah, it hasn't been an impressive season for me for Washington on offense. But all right, let's move on. Number 6 team, New York Giants. Got to bring up this team, bro, because Jalen Hyatt ran a route on 64% of the team dropbacks and he played 60% of the snaps. That was the third most snap share of the season. And Dalton, out of nowhere on Sunday, I mean, you never tweet, bro, but you just simply put Jalen Hyatt can play. So what's the deal with you and Jalen Hyatt, pal?
First of all, I didn't bring this up, but 2 weeks earlier, I did tweet that C.J. Stroud had the most passing yards over a 3-game stretch by any rookie ever, and it was halftime. Dude takes the biggest hit right afterward, and that may have even contributed into the horrible 3 turnover half, the one that he nearly right after I tweeted, right. Horrible against Arizona. I forgot to say that my powers remain strong as far as jinxing. But Hyatt, I don't even know if he did have a catch after I said that. But I know you've talked about it in the podcast, and you're laughing about how random of a tweet it was. But I actually almost tweeted about him before he made another downfield play, because he just made multiple ones that kind of just jumped off the screen there. I don't know. Maybe it's nothing, but DeVito, I mean, do we give him credit for maybe it's my guy DeVito who deserves the credit here. I'm kidding. What are your thoughts on Hyatt? You pay more attention to the route running than I do. So I want to hear your thoughts on Hyatt. He really did look, from what I saw, made some pretty good plays downfield. Multiple plays.
I'm coming around on Tommy DeVito. I'll tell you that.
Tommy Cutlets. Let's go. You see the people signing. There's hundreds of people in line to sign to have him sign his autograph. It's amazing. Love the story.
Oh, I mean, he's perfect. Obviously, New York area, the whole thing. It's great. But he was slinging it against the Patriots. I mean, they scored 10 points. They win a 10-7 game. We're not going to be throwing a parade or anything. But this is a guy that's like living out his dream. I mean, shout out to him. That's awesome. And I would be much harder on Tommy DeVito if he came in there like a Tim Boyle and just like, I'm just going to check the ball down and like do the whole safe thing. I'm just here because Aaron Rodgers likes me type of situation. And we'll get to the Jets here in a moment. But I think DeVito out there pushing it to Jalen Hyatt is a credit to him. And on Jalen Hyatt, admittedly, I haven't looked at him from a reception perception standpoint in the NFL yet. I would like to add him to the in-season rookie report. I'm working on just finished Tavian Wicks for the Packers and Marvin Mims for the Broncos. So he's kind of next on my list because I actually didn't realize like he has been playing a ton. But I think he's a good downfield receiver. And it's just the fact that he went in the third round is so much more like, okay, we're good. Like if you get a great downfield receiver, like in a Ted Ginn type of way out of a third round pick, then that's great.
A lot of projections had him going in the first round. Hyatt's 24.4 yard average depth of target is more than 5 yards higher than any other player in the NFL with a minimum 25 targets. So it's definitely all downfield stuff. But yeah, we'll see. I'm sure I put the curse on him though with my tweet.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers here, number 7 overall team. Rachaad White averaged over 4.4 yards per carry for the first time this season because he ripped off a long run. I didn't really know what to get for a Bucs stat because it's just like this team is kind of just existing right now. I mean, Mike Evans is balling the F out, which is awesome, but still, I don't really know what else to say other than like, I guess I could have come with a great Mike Evans superlative stat, but yeah.
Rachaad White, I have as my RB4 this week. His ECR is the 11, but man, they're 5.5 point favorites at home against Carolina. He gets all the targets. Even got 100 rushing yards for the first time last week. It got exactly the 100 if your league uses that bonus. So I like White as a slam dunk start here. And it should be positive game script. Carolina gives up a ton of fantasy points to opposing back. So really like Rachaad White this week.
Next team up here, New York Jets. As we're recording this, I'll give the stat here in a second, but Adam Schefter reports that Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles 79 days ago. Today, Jets head coach Robert Saleh said that Rodgers has been cleared for, quote, functional football activity. He also said, Robert Saleh, that Alan Lazard is going to be active for Week 13 and that the Jets are opening the 21-day practice window for quarterback Aaron Rodgers. So, look, obviously the Jets have to remain in playoff contention for Rodgers to, he said, like, yeah, they've got to be contending for something for me to play. But there is a chance, I guess, that we see Rodgers at some point. They have the Falcons this week and then the Texans in Week 14.
How bad is Trevor Siemian playing in practice, or how much does this have to do with Rodgers' relationship with Boyle? I don't know. It's bizarre, but his I don't know. It's weird what's going on there. But I would love to see Rodgers try to come back, and it'd be a spectacle. I'd love it. But I remain skeptical because of their record, right? I mean, it would be seemingly, he should just prepare for next year.
Yeah, I mean, according to the New York Times, there's like a less than 1% chance they make the playoffs. So I don't really see the point in all of this other than the spectacle, as you mentioned, and just like, hey, see what I did. I came back when nobody said I would. 79 days ago, I tore my Achilles, and then here I am. I am back, baby. Other than that, I don't really see what the point is in any of this. And look, this team's going to have to look itself in the mirror and ask a lot of hard questions about, like, why did we let all of Aaron Rodgers' boys come in here and, like, run the show? I mean, it's the Lazard thing was awful. The Cobb thing is awful. The Tim Boyle thing is terrible. Zach Wilson starting as long as he did is a joke. I mean, I don't really know how responsible Aaron Rodgers is for recruiting Dalvin Cook, but that was obviously, laughable.
I forgot about all those. Yeah.
That was laughable. And look, I mean, Hackett, terrible hiring as the offensive coordinator. All of it is bad. It sounds like reportedly, though, that all of these guys will be back because Rodgers wants them back. Douglas, Saleh, Nate Hackett, all these players will be back next year. They just have to add more beyond Rodgers and obviously on the offensive line. Billy Turner, a tackle that he had relationships with. He was, or a guard. He's been terrible too. But all that said, there's a lot to critique the Jets on. But this brings me to my Jets stat, and I'm going to defend Robert Saleh here for a second. Since week 6, the Jets rank 32nd in rushing EPA and 31st in rushing success rate. Robert Saleh got, totally dragged by every know-it-all on fantasy Twitter a couple of days ago. And look, it was coming off that Black Friday disaster, so it's pretty easy to take pot shots at the Jets. But Robert Saleh said that Breece Hall is a special talent, but there's the grimy yards that a back has to understand he needs to get. He needs to get more of the tough yards than always trying to hit a home run. That's what, again, Robert Saleh said about Breece Hall. Does the stat not reflect exactly that he has been trying to hit that home run too much? And look, Breece Hall probably is trying to hit the home run because he knows ain't nobody in the passing game about to hit a home run. They might not even be able to hit a single right now in the passing. Dude, they might not even be able to bunt. I'm looking at all my baseball analogies. They might not even be able to friggin' bunt in the passing game right now. So I do understand that. But even Breece Hall came out and tweeted, I hate that people take constructive criticism so personal. It's just a challenge to be the best version of yourself. I mean, everybody that tried to dunk on Robert Saleh for this, like, grow up.
Yeah, no, I like your take on this. The Jets season has just been a total waste for the quarterback. What could have been for Garrett Wilson? I mean, the dude could be a top 3 fantasy wideout. It's just so frustrating to watch. Now we're left with a 15.8 team total this week, tied with the Panthers. It's just ugly. And their defense deserves credit, by the way. I've heard people like Bill Simmons say they have a bad rush defense. This is a product. This is a product of the offense continually giving them the ball. Don't look at overall rushing yards allowed. I mean, this defense is awesome and would be really recognized as such if they just got, average play from its offense. So I would, I'd love it. Run it back. I know Rodgers just triggers people so much, but I'd love to see him come back on this team next year and see them actually try it. It's wild. He's the first player in NFL history, I believe, to not throw on his new team, whatever. He did not throw a single pass on his new team. He tore that Achilles before attempting to pass. So let's see him do it again. And we're going to have to wait till next year, come back healthier and with a chance to make the playoffs, obviously. So let's let's tune in next year.
I agree. And look, Breece Hall's still coming back from a major injury, and nobody's saying he's been bad. Like Robert Saleh said, he's a special talent. I think there are some ways he needs to get better, and that's what the player thinks as well.
And Hall took it well too. Yeah, he took it.
Yeah, like this stuff is just people try to make like something out of nothing, and it's always when you're losing. Like I said, we talked about this with Eckler yesterday. It's like when you're losing and you're down bad, like people extrapolate things and try to like lean into the drama. I'm glad that Breece Hall doesn't lean into the drama. All of you out there, come on, let's not lean into the drama. And I think this team's going to be fun to watch next year with Aaron Rodgers. I'm there as well. I think they got to add a little more at different positions here. Tight end, wide receiver. Maybe a different running back other than Dalvin Cook.
They're going to try to trade for Adams. They're going to try to bring in Adams.
That I don't want to see. That I'm not trying to see. I mean, I'm interested in Devontae Adams with a good quarterback, but like again, let's maybe go outside of guys whose cell phone number we already have. Let's get some new cell phone numbers in our contact book. But anyways. Speaking of the Chargers and Eckler, number 9, Los Angeles Chargers. Another stat. I was like, team, what stat do you want from me here? Justin Herbert has run 16 times for 135 yards in the last 3 games, 10 scrambles alone in the last 2 games. I mean, because he's got to create something out of nothing, because there is absolutely nothing going on in this offense beyond Keenan Allen.
I was just thinking, what if Belichick does his old take away the opponent's best player thing here with Keenan Allen averaging 20 targets the last month? We love Eckler, but the guy is playing injured, is what's happening here. We said the miles per hour, 13 miles per hour last week, whatever his thing. The guy is playing with a bum ankle. So I'm curious what would happen if New England does do that and tries to see Quentin Johnston and the likes beat them in New England. But boy, the Patriots offense limits them so much too. So I don't know. It's a disappointing year for the Chargers, and love to see Eckler bounce back next year. Same with Rodgers.
The way that Keenan Allen lines up and is deployed, I mean, the Ravens were trying to double him and take him away.
They're trying. This is impossible.
It's
okay,
hard, yeah.
All right. I like to hear that. Okay, all right. Yeah, you're sure. Harbaugh's smart. Yeah, and it's just hard because of the middle of the field.
Yeah, hard because of the middle of the field, the slot stuff. It's really difficult to dedicate extra attention there. And I mean, who else are you scared of on this offense right now?
Yeah,
Jalen Guyton. Like, it's funny because Colin was asking in the chat, can I pick up Jalen Guyton on a bye week? Like, I don't think you can. I don't think you can pick up Alec Erickson is playing ahead of Quentin Johnston. I mean, and then Brandon Staley's getting all defensive about it in the press conference. I just see the quote that I posted on Twitter the other day, where it's just like, after everything he says, like, okay, I know it's hard for you to understand. Okay, like, that guy is so tilted. It just like, pull the plug, man. Pull the plug.
He's very tilted. No, he's chirping it at a reporter every week, it seems like now.
Number 10 team, Tennessee Titans, another one that's just like, okay, the Titans are existing. 34 snaps for Derrick Henry in week 12, 19 touches, 2 scores. The Titans aren't going to get many better spots than they did against the Carolina Panthers. And that was just like a great run out for Henry. But how confident are you in him? And I guess Hopkins against the Colts, the Dolphins, and the Texans the next 3 weeks.
I mean, weirdly, it was a discouraging performance for me with Henry, even though he scored half as many TD runs in the first half as he had all year. That came with just 24 rushing yards in the first half against the Panthers defense, allowing 3rd most fantasy points to running backs this year. Henry finished with 76, and he had a late 20-yard run in garbage time. I don't know. He's so dependent on wins and losses, and he's been better after Thanksgiving throughout his career, but I'm just not expecting a big tear here on this team. That was just a perfect setup last week. And yes, he got there with the 2 touchdowns, but I'm worried about Henry moving forward down the stretch. The Titans are now 4-0 when playing in Tennessee this season, for what it's worth. Weird.
That is pretty weird. Again, they get the Dolphins in week 14 at home. Oh no, excuse me. They go to Miami in week 14. Otherwise, they have their 2 division rivals there, Colts and Texans at home. So we'll see if that home road stuff sticks up for the Tennessee Titans. Number 11 team, Las Vegas Raiders. Jacoby Myers, 7 targets last week were his most since week 7, which was also the last time he scored a touchdown or cleared 4 catches. I know Jacoby Myers made his way onto a lot of like, you can drop this guy list in fantasy. I don't know. It's tough for me to drop a player as good as Jacoby Myers, and you could pop up for games. I just don't know how trustable it's going to be.
Yeah, I put Myers as a start this week in my start column. I say that because it was a good matchup for him, not some that I think he's going to be a future thing. It was just perfect with L'Jarius Sneed shadowing Adams this game and likely playing from behind, which, boy, they were up 14-0, and Carlson doesn't miss a short field goal. They'll be up more. But this was just a perfect setup. You're still dealing with Aiden O'Connell, and you're the clear second fiddle to Adams, who's been the guy. So this is more of a nice 1 week time to use him, and then moving forward, kind of treat him like he was the last month.
Well, I will say by this week, Minnesota week 14. They're a funny defense to try to project, but then Los Angeles, the Chargers in week 15, and then those Chiefs again in week 16. So there could be some, and then Colts week 17. There are going to be some spots where you're thinking about Jacoby Myers for sure. All right, week 12, New Orleans Saints. Derek Carr's adjusted net yards per attempt of 5.0 is now in the same neighborhood of Aiden O'Connell, Baker Mayfield, Sam Howell, and Gardner Minshew. I was looking for like Derek Carr stats today on Twitter before I settled on this one. Dude, Saints fans hate Derek Carr, man. It's tough out there for Derek Carr, but you know what? I kind of get it because he has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the league this year.
I get it too. It's so frustrating for Chris Olave's fantasy manager. He finally shows the rapport with Derek Carr. Huge first half. He might have 200 receiving yards last week, but suffered the concussion early in the third quarter. So I got my eyes on Juwan Johnson, DFS, $11 salary in Yahoo. If Olave misses, Shaheed's already been basically ruled out. This could be a really nice setup against the Lions this week. Johnson has quietly been getting snaps more since he returned healthy, since he returned from the injury a couple weeks ago. So he's a sleeper tight end for me this week, given all these injuries in New Orleans.
I mean, Taysom Hill, is he going to touch the ball 15 times?
You're right. That's the headline. I'm thinking more sleeper stuff. Taysom Hill's going to get a ton of work this week. You're right. It's a good point. He could be like a top 5 fantasy tight end this week. A ton of work. Detroit is pretty good against the run, and they've been getting annihilated against the pass recently. So, and then Taysom Hill take over in the red zone. I agree. Taysom Hill's going to see a ton of added work with all these injuries.
Yeah, I mean, Carr's been terrible in the red zone in particular. He's like a 44% completion rate.
No, and there were the highlights last year. Warren Sharp made a tweet of his 10 passes inside or all his passes inside the 10 last year. They were just horrific. And last week's was that was a pick 6, right? Yeah, Jesse Bates. Yeah, in the red zone that changed the whole entire trajectory of the game. Really bad.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't even he doesn't realize that a safety can move and read his eyes. Derek, bro, you've been playing in the league forever. Come on, man. Okay, number 13 team, Green Bay Packers. Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Tucker Kraft, Jaden. It's hilarious how young all these guys are. And Jaden Reed all ran a route on at least 79% of the dropbacks in week 12. No other wide receiver or tight end was above 16%. Two notable names here who are missing: Luke Musgrave, who might miss the rest of the season, and Dontavian Wicks, who I think Dontavian Wicks can play. He's a pretty good young receiver there, but I don't know what his injury status will be, but he did miss the Thanksgiving game. So that kind of isolated to these top 3 receivers, opened up some more opportunity for them to just kind of, again, dominate the playing time. Because Heath and Samari Toure, those guys are not going to command looks like Dontavian Wicks is. So I don't know. What's your sort of sleeper appeal on Tucker Kraft, and where are you at with these 3 receivers? Watson, Romeo Doubs, and Jaden Reed, who, spoiler alert, I mean, I think just looks awesome.
The Packers had a ton of injuries in that game against the Lions on Thanksgiving. Most were on defense, but missing Aaron Jones, I'll point out, while a clear downgrade, A.J. Dillon, it led to more passes on 1st and 10 because the team, I think, realizes that A.J. Dillon is tough. So in a way, it hurt those, backing the Lions because it did make them more pass heavy. And Christian Watson looked good finally, but I'm with you. Jaden Reed is the most exciting Packer receiver for me moving forward. They even give him carries. But Kraft is a sleeper if you need a tight end or a deep, cheap DFS. But Jordan Love has been really improving, showing growth for about the last 3 to 4 weeks now. And that team is moving in the right direction. It's been a very odd year, fast start, really bad in between, and now encouraging again. And yeah, I mean, Christian Watson, maybe he's not going to live up to the hype, but he's certainly helpful Christian Watson that we saw on Thanksgiving than as we saw previously this season.
A 50% playoff odds for the Green Bay Packers, according to the New York Times right now. It used to be down at 16%. So they've got a chance here. Tough game, obviously, this week against Kansas City Chiefs. That's a Sunday night game. Yeah, it's a Sunday night game. And then they play on Monday night against the New York Giants. So a lot of potential sightings here for the Green Bay Packers. I just think this offense, I'm so glad that they, it was easy to criticize them at the time. They're not playing well. All these guys are so young. They're making mistakes. But they've kind of worked through the lumps here with these guys. And yeah, Christian Watson, I am with you. He is not going to live up to the hype. And that was my take coming into the year. But it's not as if he stinks. It's not as if he's a useless player. He's a very good downfield receiver. Just don't know that he's a true one. I think Jaden Reed might be a true one someday. And Dobbs is useful. Tucker Kraft, I think, is not a bad player. We'll see in Musgraves and Wick when they get these guys back. There's a lot of potential here, and Jordan Love has played good football. So I'm interested to see what the Packers can do down the stretch if they can capitalize on this 50% playoff chance, because there are definitely, again, tough sledding this week with the Chiefs. There's a chance we see Jordan Love struggle on Sunday Night Football, and everybody's like, yeah, see, he still sucks. But I think he's played well. And then the Giants, the Bucks, the Panthers, the Vikings, the Bears to end the season. This is a good little stretch for the Packers here to go on a run.
10 days to prepare. Give me the points Sunday night. Give me those 6 points against that Chiefs offense. I like it.
Oh, baby. I love it. I love to see that. All right, number 14 team, Los Angeles Rams. I posted this the other day. Many factors at play regarding Cooper Kupp's recent statistical slump, but this is a big one. Percentage of Cooper Kupp's targets to come on, quote, designed plays, according to Fantasy Points data. 2021, 12.3% of his targets. 2022, 23.7% of his targets. And this year, it's down to 4.2%. Notably, since week 5, when Cooper Kupp returned, 19% of Puka Nakua's targets have come on designed plays. And Dalton, I think this is pretty easy to explain. In 2021, he was obviously playing at a historic level. I've said this before, but he had the second best success rate versus zone coverage in reception perception history that year. Second to only Antonio Brown. He did it, I think, in 2014. So playing at a historic level, just unbelievably awesome. Of course, you're going to design plays to that guy, like, because he's playing at that level. Last year in 22, 23.7%. Like, that just goes to show nobody else was doing anything really on this offense. They couldn't run the ball. Allen Robinson wasn't working as their X receiver. They didn't have a guy like Kyren Williams in the backfield because Kyren Williams was literally hurt. So they're just designing touches, like pumping production to Cooper Kupp, and the offense still stinks for it, by the way. I think some of Kupp's production last year was a little bit fake newsy, 23.7% of the targets there. And then this year, cratering down to 4.2%. Neither of those two things are true that I just mentioned. Kupp is definitely not playing at a historic level. He's banged up, and it's showing in his RP success rates. He's down almost 10% from his success rate versus zone coverage of 22 down to this year. And his man scores are really cratering because he doesn't look like the same player. I'm not saying he's toast, but he's obviously dealing with a lot of injuries. And of course, obviously, Puka Nacua is good. He's there. You're designing touches to him. So the second part of it's not true either. They don't have to fake news production their way to Cooper Kupp right now. So that is sort of the state of the state with the Cooper Kupp stuff right now.
And Matthew Stafford entered with the lowest completion percentage over expectation in the league last week. Then he balled out and he posted one in the 92nd percentile. But that's been a contributing factor as well, I'm sure, the Stafford battling through some inaccuracy issues. But no, I mean, whatever. I don't have much to contribute. That's a great discovery of a part of the problem here. And it's clear it's multiple factors dealing with the injury being the main one. And he had to have that retaped after the first drive last week.
Yes.
His ankle was getting retaped immediately. So, and that, as one of the commentators said, if it's feeling that already, it's going to be a problem the rest of this game because usually your adrenaline, right away there. So I think that's an injury that's not going to go away this season.
Yeah, I think so too. It sucks because, I mean, I really love Cooper Kupp. I think he's a good player, but I think we're just kind of at that point. I do think from a rest of season perspective, I think there's a gap between Puka and Cooper Kupp, and like that's definitely something I feel pretty confident about. I think Puka's like the way to go rest of season in this Rams receiver room. All right, number 15 team, Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals ran just 41 plays in week 12. I mean, yikes, bro. Like, their defense is a bottom 10 defense right now. It's not played well all year. A lot of issues on that side of the ball. And, of course, I mean, big issue, no Joe Burrow. Jake Browning is not it. So it's over for Mixon. Jamar Chase, you got to have him catch a deflected pass and run after the catch to hit for you. We're down bad in the Bengals offense right now.
Yeah, defensively, John Legeza tweeted for our stat this week over the last 3 weeks, last 3 games. The Bengals defense ranks last in yards allowed, 456 yards per play, 6.8, 30th in EPA per dropback. It's a laundry list. Rushing yards, it's 166 too. So it's been brutal. And as you said, there was not one but 2 deflections Jamar Chase helped contribute to his stats last week that could have been picks. So Browning, love the telecast said he threw 91 touchdowns his senior year in high school, but that didn't translate into college nor the pros. His final line was okay, but as you said, they barely ran any plays last week. So a tough matchup in Jacksonville Monday night as well.
I was going to say they get Jags Monday night, then they get the Colts, the Vikings, the Steelers, and the Chiefs, and then the Browns in week 18. So some of those offenses are not very good, but some of them could really smash against this Bengals defense. Number 16 team here. Oh, God, why are the Bills this high? It's so depressing. Crazy. Josh Allen has 7 scrambles for 72 yards and a score over the last 2 games, obviously with Joe Brady calling the plays, and is second in pass attempts as well.
Yeah, Allen it was fun to watch last game. I was rooting for them to beat the Eagles, but Eagles just keep getting it done, man. Just impressive fashion. Buffalo Bills plus 101 point differential, second best in the AFC, sorry, and are fighting for a playoff spot. So wild year. It's been turnovers, been bad luck. It's crazy. Josh Allen though gets it done, man. It's just a fun player to watch.
I know, such a fun player to watch. He definitely feels a little like he's in his Cam Newton phase right now, where it's just like a lot of weird stuff going on around him, and it's just like he's going to get too much crap for it. All right, number 17 team, Houston Texans. Among players with 200-plus routes run this year, Nico Collins ranks 4th in yards per route run, and Tank Dell ranks 14th. What an awesome duo for CJ Stroud. I don't have a lot to add here. I mean, who cares about the backfield? And these guys are ballers.
Yeah, I know Nico had a higher first read target percentage than Dell last week. I haven't checked, or 2 weeks ago. I haven't checked last week. But Dell, man, the guy had a 58-yard catch nullified by an illegal shift. Stroud missed him for another possible long score. Then he had a clear catch when he was both feet in bounds. Ruled incomplete and they didn't challenge. I mean, the guy was robbed of like 140 yards last week alone. So it's going to be fun to watch them take turns of who's the alpha in any given week. And good luck trying to predict which one. But that was my conclusion, is there doesn't have to be an alpha. They both can be alphas, basically.
Yeah, last 2 weeks, 31.8% first read target share for Nico Collins, 20.5% for Tank Dell. Just yeah, like as you said, it's going to be a little moving and shaking here. I have a really tough time thinking who I prefer long term, and who I think is the better player right now. I think they're both really, really good players. And just like a couple weeks ago, it was like, oh, it's over for Nico Collins. Tank Dell is taking over. I don't know about that. I think these guys are both very, very good. Josh Norris posed a pretty interesting question I saw on Twitter, but like in terms of quarterback and like his top 2 pass catchers that are under contract next year, I think, like, how many would you take over CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, and Nico Collins? Like, it's, if you just sit down and think about it, it's actually pretty difficult. Like there's because obviously Joe Burrow and the Bengals you can't count because T. Higgins isn't under contract. Like Tua, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. Like, I don't know, man. It's pretty interesting.
Absolutely. One thing I want to note about Houston real quick is that Singletary, the backfield touches look a little bit misleading last week. It was 6-5 with Dameon Pierce, but Singletary was top 3 in route participation, snap share, and really dominated the underlying metrics there. And he's the guy moving forward. Maybe it's Dameon Pierce's first game back has something to do with that, but I don't think so. I think Singletary is the backfield guy here. And if you looked at that box score, it would have been misleading. And with the Stroud and those two guys, as you said, whoever is a feature back there will benefit.
Not a bad spot in week 13 against the Denver Broncos. And speaking of the Denver Broncos, they're our number 18 overall team here. Russell Wilson leads all quarterbacks according to Fantasy Points data with a 20.1% check down rate, which is kind of by a lot. The second place guy is Jimmy G, your boy, at 16.1%. Then Justin Fields at 15.8% and Zach Wilson at 15.6%. So look, I'm all credit to Russ for turning around like a bottom barrel season last year. Let's cool it with like Russ is all the way back. I think he is back to being a functional, solid starting NFL quarterback, but they're not asking him to do too much here.
Yep, and that checks out. Just watching the games, he's just constantly checking down. I said Mr. Unlimited has become Mr. Checkdown, and that's just the way it's been this year. But it's worked, and the offense has functioned, and they've winning games. They've changed that turnover battle. That's probably part of the reason, all those less dangerous passes. But just check down to the running back in between the 20s and look for Cortland Sutton in the red zone, and that's been working a recipe for what, five straight wins after starting 1-5. Is that what it is?
Yep. Yeah, they've been super impressive. And Sutton's balling out, man. He's having a great year. He finally looks like the player from 2019. I've been saying he didn't look like that guy for the last few years. He looks like that guy this year. So shout out to him. And I'm telling you that I remember doing the stat a couple like months ago or whatever of like all the in-breaking and crossing routes for him. He's been money on, which is crucial. That's like the Michael Thomas role in this offense. So he's been great for that. All right. Number
Wilson,
19.
most rushing attempts in a game since 2017 last week.
Yeah, no, that can help him from a fantasy perspective for sure. I think he's a viable like streaming candidate quarterback, but that's kind of all I'm at with Russ at this point.
Ooh, I like this one and against Houston though this week because Houston pushes you, makes you throw. I mean, as much as I like those corners, they force you to throw the ball because they're going to put up a ton of points in Houston. I really like Russell Wilson this week in fantasy, top 12.
Jerry Jeudy going to do anything?
No,
Ever?
he won't do anything.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Just checking. All right. Number 19 team, Atlanta Falcons. Bijan Robinson, 22 opportunities last week to 10 for Tyler Algier and 8 for Cordero Patterson. So it wasn't like a total takeover for Bijan, but really good to see. They ran the hell out of the ball against the Saints. That was awesome to see. Most critically, though, Bijan and Drake London combined for a whopping 62% target share in the Falcons offense. And listen, if that's what we're going to get going forward, which who knows, Arthur Smith can pull the rug out from under us. That's fine. We can deal with the Falcons offense in this regard. If it's going to be like a bunch of opportunities for Bijan and him and Drake London dominating targets, that we're good to go.
Yeah, Ritter does look like an improvement from Heineke, at least at home. He's 32-1 at home now since high school, but he threw a couple of ugly picks last week, got 8.0 YPA. It was a little bit more functional than Heineke, it felt like. So, yeah, I mean, London's and Pitts are not going to live up to fantasy expectations, nor is Bijan, but it was nice to see those opportunities. And hopefully they can continue. And a Jets team, I think they have the third most rush attempts or whatever. A lot of rush attempts against this Jets defense. So Bijan should be busy again this week.
Yeah, my bold prediction of Drake London getting 1,200 receiving yards is probably not going to hit. I mean, he has 565 right now, so I don't think we're going to get there. But hey, again, if we can just concentrate the targets there for these two guys, that's good to see. Jets, Bucks, Carolina, Indianapolis, Bears, Saints to finish the year for the Falcons. So it's a pretty good stretch run here. All right, number 20 team, Minnesota Vikings. Josh Dobbs ranks 24th since week 9 in dropback success rate. Dalton, I said this a couple of weeks ago. Like, I have a feeling that when people start seeing Josh Dobbs play on island games, primetime games, people are going to realize, like, when you just look, the story's awesome, but when you take a step back from the story and when you take a step back from the highlights on Red Zone, they're going to see like, he's not playing like consistent, good quality quarterback. There's a lot of high highs. There's a lot of low lows. All that being said, I didn't even see the disaster coming on Monday night against the Bears. Some of it wasn't his fault. There were tip passes. I think you could definitely criticize some of the receiver play, but man, it was a rough showing for Josh Dobbs to the point that like Nick Mullins, your boy Nick Mullins was warming up on the sideline. Kevin O'Connell's like not totally committed to who's going to play quarterback coming out of the bye.
Yeah, Dobbs has gotten worse the more he's known the playbook and teammates, it seems. It sounds to me like he's definitely going to be benched after the bye because the priority is whoever is going to get the ball to Justin Jefferson, and that appears to be Mullins or Hall. I'm not sure if you have an opinion between those two, but yeah, if I had to guess, it sounds like Dobbs has gone from putting up fantasy stats to being benched pretty quickly. He's always so loose with the ball. The turnovers have been a problem all year, and yeah, you got a defense preparing for him and not just running to that right side every time. And yeah, that was a brutal watch on Monday.
Yeah, usually I say if a quarterback if they don't come out right away, the coach doesn't come out right away and say, nope, this is our guy. If they leave open, if they even crack the door open, that quarterback is getting benched. If that's what they say in the post-game presser or the day after presser, certainly. If it's Nick Mullins, he gets the Raiders in week 14 coming off the bye. We know Nick Mullins can tear up the Raiders. So we shall see if that is if that's something we can count on there. Number 21st overall team, Indianapolis Colts. Josh Downs had a 22.4% air yard share last week and a 29.3% target share. I'm hoping that's sticky and coming out of the Colts bye week, and we just see him and Michael Pittman dominate targets. It's a great set of matchups the next 2 weeks. Titans, Bengals for the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, that's exactly what we hoped coming out of the bye. Is that knee injury healthier? 13 targets at home. The problem is it was very unproductive against a totally banged up, decimated Tampa Bay secondary. So that was frustrating there. But you love to see the targets, including 3 in the red zone, 1 inside the 5. You love him as a player. Big numbers should be in store, including this week, another pass funnel defense against Tennessee without Jonathan Taylor. That said, you're adding and starting Zach Moss everywhere. He could be a huge difference maker over the next 3 weeks.
Number 20, second overall team, Seattle Seahawks. We're skipping them for Thursday night. Number 23rd overall team, Pittsburgh Steelers. This one comes from Mina Kimes. In weeks 1 to 11, Kenny Pickett only targeted the middle of the field 50 times. It was the lowest number in the NFL. and he had the worst EPA per dropback when doing so. On Sunday, he went 9 for 11 for 133 yards, throwing over the middle of the field. Pat Freiermuth went off. He had more yards than any player, I believe, in Week 12. There was still a couple of sideline deep shots, both to Deontay Johnson and to George Pickens on kind of a slot fade. So there were still those plays involved in the offense, but activating the middle of the field, I mean, it's just crazy that Matt Canada wasn't doing any of that. So I hope it's sticky. You know, they still only put up 16 points, but there's talent in this Steelers offense, and, you know, they're running the ball well, and if the passing game can catch up, they will go from being like the Steelers, I don't want to see them play in the playoffs, like, you know what? Maybe they're interesting.
Yeah, they kept a really slow pace, but Steelers finally topped 400 yards of offense for the first time in 59 games. Did you know that the last time the Steelers reached 400 yards of offense was their last game before Matt Canada took over?
Are you serious?
Wild? Yeah, that's what I heard.
I didn't know that. I didn't. Yes, I know they had not. I know they hadn't done it during the Matt Canada era, but it was
they topped it the last game before he took over. Crazy, and it's also
did he I can't remember. Did he take over in season for Larry Finkner, the guy before him? I can't. Yeah, remember.
Those details I can't remember, but that stat I heard, that was too good to be true, and I think it is true though. Anyway, they also outgained their opponent for the first time all season. last week too. So using the middle of the field, Jaylen Warren could have a blow up game this week. The week after, you know, you don't think him or Pickens, you know, everyone expected it the week right after. Their role didn't expand, but now at home against Arizona, a really nice matchup. Deontay Johnson should have had a touchdown last week, but they didn't challenge the play. It looked like it was a catch, so he continues to be allergic to the end zone in a frustrating manner. But hopefully Pickett's ankle doesn't limit him too much. And again, he's not going to start throwing multiple TDs a bunch, but no Matt Canada, it seems to be a plus.
Deontay also, you know, the whole loafing thing afterwards, Jeremy Fowler, not a great look, but Jeremy Fowler reported that the team, you know, had a big player conversation with him, and he was like, you know, super apologetic about it. He was just frustrated for the you know, the whole missed touchdown thing. I'm looking at it right now, buddy. Yes, in the wild card loss to the Cleveland Browns from the 2020 season, the Pittsburgh Steelers under Randy Finkner, I said Larry Finkner, Randy Finkner, 553 yards of total offense. And 394, like pretty close in the regular season finale in 2020 against the damn, oh my God.
Blame Canada. Wow, that's wild. And then he goes 58 games. Pretty crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that is like they were down bad in that game. The Browns were kind of beating the tar off of them in that playoff game, but still, regardless, whatever. It's still funny. Matt Canada jokes are still loud. Speaking of the Browns, number 24 overall team, Cleveland Browns, Jerome Ford ran a route on 72% of the dropbacks and garnered 7 targets in Week 12. I think this is notable, Dalton, because I think we're getting pretty close to Joe Flacco starting games in the year 2023 for the Cleveland Browns of all teams. It's going to look very weird with him in a Browns uniform because he was with the Ravens for so long, but he'll be checking that ball down to Jerome Ford, I'll tell you what.
No doubt. Kareem Hunt takes a lot of the red zone work, which does hurt here, but it's a great defense and a banged up Amari Cooper. So Jerome Ford's a good player too. So he's a top 25-ish fantasy back for me.
Yeah, if we get Joe Flacco in any of these next couple of games, Rams, Jaguars, there's some good pass rushers there. We could be getting a lot of Jerome Ford checkdowns. So, all right. Yep. Number 25 overall team, Miami Dolphins. I struggle with them because it's like start all their players, but Jalen Waddle, 53% air yard share last week, 8 targets to 12 for Jalen Waddle to Tyreek Hill, the 12 targets for him. So, anything good here with Jalen Waddle going forward, or is this just random?
It's a really good matchup this week. Washington's secondary can't stop anyone. Just the other thing to note with Miami is Achane. Does he return? You know, how high do you rank him? It's such an interesting player. But and then you move down Jeff Wilson. But Achane's status is the thing to pay attention here too for Miami.
100%. I think you start Jalen Waddle if you have him this week. All right.
Oh yeah.
Number 26 overall team is Dallas Cowboys. Skip them for Thursday Night Football. Number 27 overall team, Detroit Lions. Jared Goff's the last 2 weeks, 87.9 passer rating, 6.5 adjusted yards per attempt, and 6 turnovers. Dalton, how concerned are you about Jared Goff's recent performance? One of which came, or were both of them at home? One of them was last week was at home, obviously, but was the game before that?
They were both at home, agained Chicago. The cover two, both at home. Yeah, I know he threw 3 picks that game, and man, it's been very, very shaky. I didn't really see it coming. They looked like a team with a good offensive line and rolling, but yeah, Goff has taken major step backs the last couple of weeks. Looked shaky. I don't know. I wrote off again the cover 2 issue with Chicago, but Green Bay, I don't know. They were missing Jair Alexander and a linebacker. They had injuries, and he did not look good at all. Offensive line the pressure was getting to him too, but man, I don't know. What do you make of Goff's recent stretch?
Yeah, I mean, Jared Goff under pressure, not good. Okay, that's a problem.
That's probably the takeaway. Yeah.
I think that's a big one. Saints, their defense has sort of fallen off lately with injuries. Cam Jordan got banged up last week, so maybe this is a nice bounce back spot. It's in New Orleans, which is in a dome too, so it's not like we got to worry about Jared Goff and weather and anything like that. And you said the cover 2 splits for Jared Goff, right? Like he struggles against cover 2 or something.
That's what I thought. So yes, and he certainly did against the Bears.
Saints are 6th in cover 2 usage. Okay. So that could be an interesting one to monitor this week if he can't bounce back. All right, number 28 overall team, Jacksonville Jaguars. Calvin Ridley ranks 9th among wide receivers in expected fantasy points the last 2 weeks according to fantasy points data. So shout out to Calvin Ridley. I think he is back.
Calvin Ridley definitely looks back. And did you tweet that out, or I saw someone tweet out that he has by far the most PI
yes.
yard, right? By far, like twice. It's a ton. The stat's really cool. You should figure that one out.
Yeah, I got it. I'll pull it up while you're talking.
Okay. All right. But anyway, he's come so close to so many touchdowns in the end zone this year. And as frustrating as it's been, I think ultimately we're going to look at it and be like, I guess Ridley was the wide receiver one there and had a decent year.
Yeah, I think he's definitely the number one receiver there. I think we're past that point. We're like, okay, we
and the Zay Jones splits. Are we making what I mean,
look, the Zay Jones stuff, like, yeah, it's not the full explanation because it's nice that they have like another viable outside receiver they can use, and it's not like Jamal Agnew or any of these other guys, but it's that they've been moving Ridley around. They have been getting him off the line of scrimmage, away from press coverage. They've been having him run actual in-breaking routes, allowing his route running to shine, as opposed to just like ask him to be damn George Pickens or whatever. But yeah, the PI stat that you mentioned, this one came in from @PintOfJack. Calvin Ridley already has drawn more DPI flags than anyone did in all of 2022 or 2021, and for almost twice as many yards. 7 accepted PI flags, 8 flags overall for 129 yards. It's like, just think about if he had an extra 129 yards, we would be thinking very differently about his season.
100%. Yeah, exactly. That's something that shouldn't really get overlooked. I mean, no, Ridley's out there. He's beaten people. He's gotten some bad luck. I think he's going to be a guy to target in fantasy leagues next year.
Number 20, he is a free agent, by the way. That is actually worth noting. He is a free agent, so we'll see if he comes back to Jacksonville. Maybe he plays for this team, the number 29 overall team, Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, I can't imagine how many people are going to be that are burnt from Calvin Ridley. Imagine if he played for the Chiefs and like all these people that are burnt from him this year. No way, they're never doing it. Okay, so Kansas City Chiefs, their actual stat: Rashee Rice in Week 12. Season high, 67% of the snaps, ran a route on 73.2% of the dropbacks, but Dalton had just a 4.2 average depth of target. 70 of his 107 yards came after the catch. He had a couple of plays like down the field, actual big boy wide receiver stuff, like the one down the sideline especially, but for the most part, it wasn't Rashee Rice doing anything new. It was just him doing the same old things, just being asked to do it more, which is good, by the way, for the offense and for fantasy. I just want to again, we're still in the developmental stage for Rashee Rice here.
No doubt. He has room to grow as a route runner, no question. But still, I mean, he's getting top 20 in yards per route run, 11th in fantasy points per target. It obviously helps having Mahomes throw to him, but if he does get an increased role, I think it could lead to, top 25 fantasy wideout down the stretch. No, I mean, why would they not continue to give him more targets? Even I know his route running tree is limited, but still, when you look at the alternatives, I mean, I don't know. It just makes more sense to continue. And last week, that gave the Raiders' best cornerbacks, Nate Hobbs, out of the slot. That's who beat him for that touchdown. Rice had the first Chiefs receiver to break 100 yards since week 7 of 2022. He was also top 20 in first read target percentage last week. So I don't know. I'm kind of into Rice moving forward, but I said the same thing a month ago, and it was still had its problems. So I'll probably fall in for it again. But I don't know. I think this could be the beginning of big things to come.
I am too. I'm into Rashee Rice going forward. I just want to keep it in context from like a long-term perspective that we're still in that developmental stage. But yeah, they have to get him more involved. I think at some point we've got to see him do some more stuff. The Chiefs have got to see him do some more stuff to really trust him. But they got to give him chances to do it too, and just having him on the field is the best way to do that. These other guys are just so non-needle movers. I don't care if Kadarius Toney's back. Like, don't even put him on the field. Who cares? McCole Hardman's on IR. Sky Moore's playing with a brace on his knee right now. Like, he's playing through injury. So yeah, we need more Rashee Rice. Again, he's not doing new things, which is going to be part of like him becoming like not the next Christian Watson type. Like, we need to see him doing more things before to make that leap in his second year, which by the way, I think is still possible. So, okay. Number 30 overall team here, San Francisco 49ers, your 49ers. Deebo Samuel's 13 opportunities were his most since week 2. I think Deebo is in a smash spot this week in this matchup. Agree or disagree?
Agree. So he's typically start him more versus zone defenses, and I do not believe Philly's heavy zone there, but they've allowed a top 3 most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. They are a pass funnel defense, really tough to run against. And I think it's going to lead to a ton of opportunities for Deebo and Ayuk and Kittle. And the Eagles offense is awesome and going to put up points. So absolutely, this is a back and forth, and Deebo, Ayuk, and Kittle should really all get the most opportunities they've seen in a game all year together, because if they're at least on a matchup entering this on paper, because Eagles are going to score some points for sure.
Eagles are 7th in man coverage rate, so there is that. You're right. They're also pretty high.
It's an Ayuk week.
It could definitely be an Ayuk week, but it can still be an Ayuk week and be a Deebo week. Yep. I think that's totally possible here. The middle of the field for the Eagles just is brutal, right? Their linebacker position, their nickel corner position. James Bradbury's been kind of moving into there, but Darius Slay's played better than him this year, so it does. There's a lot of ways both guys can go off in this game. So I just think Deebo looked good last week. I think they designed some stuff for him, and I think that's obviously very encouraging for this week.
Yeah, they're Eagles are allowing the most fantasy points, the most targets, the most receptions, and nearly the most yards and the most touchdowns to wide receivers this year.
Producer Colin in the chat is like, Eagles are gonna lose by 10. Niners 34, Eagles 24. I'm not that confident, and I really feel like the Eagles are getting a little, which is ironic. We'll talk about it in a second. They're getting a little disrespected here, but 31st overall, Baltimore Ravens. This one comes in from John Daigle. Zay Flowers' target shares in 2 starts without Mark Andrews, both team high marks. 47.6% in week 1 and then 26.6% last week. He scored 17.7 and 23.2 PPR points in those 2 games. Like, I think Zay Flowers is a baller. I think people overthink Zay Flowers because he gets design touches and screens and stuff. Good player and should continue to be like a every week starter, I think, with Mark Andrews out.
Yeah, I wrote about him in my numbers do lie column. Zay Flowers isn't going to score a ton of touchdowns with his role in the red zone, but man, this is encouraging without Mark Andrews. Zay Flowers had the league's 3rd highest first read target percentage last week in the game without Andrews, behind only Keenan Allen and Tyreek Hill. He benefited from that rush score. He didn't really do a ton with his targets, but Baltimore could actually be in shootouts during the fantasy playoffs. Here's their schedule: at Jacksonville, at San Francisco, and versus Miami. So that's like the opposite of their usual game scripts. All 3 of those could really result in more volume for Flowers without Andrews. Wheels up big time.
Love that. And finally, 32nd overall team, those Philadelphia Eagles that I mentioned. This one comes in from Tej Seth. The Eagles have been by far the best team in the league when trailing this season. Offensively, they have a 0.28 EPA per play when losing, which is double the Ravens in second at 0.14. Jalen Hurts has a 0.43 EPA per play when losing, which is almost double Lamar Jackson at 0.24. I love this stat because it perfectly quantifies like what I've been saying about the Eagles. Is just like when they're down, when they're in a bad spot, like they just have that grittiness, that will to win, like that belief that they're going to get it done. They have guys that have played in big games before. I wrote about this in my Care Don't Care column. Like, there's just something to that. Like, and I think this helps quantify it. It's mostly an unquantifiable thing. Definitely you can't quantify grit and all that, like will to win stuff, but they're just so good and so dialed in. They have the best players, especially on offense. They have the best players, like, and they have good players across the board. I think people are really, it's like a weird big brain media thing, like, oh, or maybe not even a big brain media thing. I don't know what it is, but like the Eagles are perfectly fine. I don't understand this whole, like, yeah, they're not that good of a team. Like, they're 10-1. Okay. At the end of the day, they win a lot of games. And even if they're point differential and all that stuff, like, they could be the same exact team and go on a run in the playoffs.
Eagles are awesome. I think maybe some skepticism is because they've been last 4 games have been outgained and trailed at halftime in every one of them, but they ended up winning.
They're the rich man Steelers.
Hurts saw, that's a good one. Hurts saw career high 57% pressure rate in the first half last week when Buffalo played 100% zone. Then he went crazy in the second half, at one point throwing 3 touchdowns over 4 pass stretch. They just get it done, and their pressure could really affect the Niners offensive line this week. I'm a Niners fan. I think that they were looking for some revenge after last week's playoff exit, but Debo's talking smack and has Philadelphia fired up. I'm surprised the spread has moved to 3. I'll say that. I mean, 2.5, I'm like, I could see it, but man, I hear you. Philadelphia 3-point underdogs. That's a little disrespectful for a 10-1 team that went to nearly won the Super Bowl last year. I understand that for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the Niners can win this game for sure, but I think these two teams are very, very close. So I think it'll be a good competitive game, fun to watch. Kind of wish it was on Sunday Night Football, but alas, it is what it is.
Yeah, but they made it pretty much an island game, right? What are the other 2 games at the same time? They're not exactly. Let's see.
It's
Cleveland and Rams and Carolina Tampa Bay. Yeah. They pretty much made that isolated that.
Yeah, you can pass on that. You can put that in the ISO screen there. I will definitely be doing that myself. All right, let's move to Thursday Night Football. This is going to be a really fun game. We got Seahawks, we got Cowboys. Our Seahawks stat, Zach Charbonnet played on 87% of the snaps last week, and he handled 67% of the carries and ran a route on 66% of the dropbacks. Wasn't a great result against your 49ers, but if you need a running back, and people need running backs, I think Zach Charbonnet actually makes for a really good start in this one.
Yeah, it's a tougher matchup against the Niners. Again, a tougher matchup against the Cowboys. But yeah, you're getting that volume. He doesn't really jump off the page. Have you been impressed with Charbonnet, the player, when you've watched him?
He's fine. I think he's fine.
He's fine. Okay. All right. But without Walker, I agree. He's a slam dunk start. You're starting him given the volume there. And man, how good is this Dallas team, especially at home? Dak Prescott, MVP candidate. I mean, he's just turned it around big time. And wow, this is a very legit team, top to bottom. This Cowboys squad.
Yeah. On your note about the Cowboys, like they've fully unleashed the pass game too. Cowboys in our 4th in neutral situation pass rate this season. They rank 4th in dropback EPA. Right now, Dak Prescott ranks 1st in QBR versus man coverage. This is from Mina Kimes. 1st in QBR versus the blitz, 2nd in QBR under pressure, 2nd in QBR from the pocket, 1st in QBR outside the pocket, and 1st in QBR on 3rd down. Whatever you think of QBR, that's pretty good. He's balling out. And again, this offense is totally and completely in his hands. I think Mike McCarthy's done a great job designing, evolving, tweaking this offense just a little bit. Remember the reports from the summer where I think CeeDee Lamb said they were going to keep 70% or something like that, or maybe it was even fewer. Basically, that they were going to keep a lot of the same stuff. They were just going to tweak it. That's what we've seen. The offensive line's healthy. Tony Pollard's looking pretty good as a rusher. They're just not going to ask him to carry a big load, which is good for Tony Pollard. Everything is clicking for the Cowboys, man, right now. They're set up really well. I definitely think they win this game, and I think all these guys smash.
Tony Pollard, 3rd in explosive run rate since week 8. And we briefly noted it last week on that John Owning tweet, but I didn't really hammer home the point that I think the theory is these are sticky stats, the missed tackles. And for him to suddenly change the last 3 weeks, it kind of makes you really do wonder if it is a physical change in his, getting healthier over the ankle injury there. I don't know, because he's just looked like a different back over the last month than he has before. Yeah, he looks faster. So that's something to note here. And it does help also getting routinely nice matchups, seemingly for Pollard. But he has another decent one. Seattle is a lot more vulnerable against the run than the pass with their corners, so I could expect another. Pollard's going to hit pay dirt again Thursday night.
Yeah, Cowboys are 9-point favorites at home, and they've been great at home of late. Like, remember when they first opened up old Jerry World there? They were not a good home team, but lately that's been a huge home field advantage. Jerry Jones went like on and on after that game about that was like one of the best days as the Cowboys owner on Thanksgiving, because they smashed Washington, division rival, the whole thing. So, yeah, man, I think I just love the way the Cowboys are playing right now. Love the way Dak is playing. CD's awesome. It's a good time. But just last thing before we close it here, just Seahawks pass game, man. We put them in the coping corner on the People's Panic Meter podcast. Where are you with this Seattle Seahawks passing game right now?
I'm very down. I believe the one league we play in together, I took Geno Smith over Dak Prescott. I also took Anthony Richardson. That was a brutal one. And J.K. Dobbins. Some injuries did not help me there. But no, I thought Geno was going to ball out this year, adding my guy JSN. Instead, he's taken a huge step back, and he's does not look encouraging moving forward to me. And Dak Prescott looks like a league MVP candidate. So I could not have been more wrong there. And my guy, Central Catholic's finest, Deron Bland, he has most pick sixes in NFL history already, more touchdowns than Kyle Pitts in his career, and he may get Geno Smith Thursday night. No, he's actually Bland is having awesome underlying stats too, just in coverage. It's not just the pick sixes. So the JSN looks like, I wouldn't say a bust, but boy, looks like I was a little bit wrong, to say the least. He
looks similar to Zach Charbonnet, where he looks fine.
Yeah,
looks fine. But
yeah, I know he made that jumping catch last week, but I don't know. Maybe the wrist injury caused him to slow, and he'll pick it up. But boy, it's been discouraging in the Seahawks passing attack. And no, I think Michael is it Penix is Seattle is already talking about that. It's a perfect fit. I think they're going to move on from Geno. Maybe I really think this year was a big step back.
Yeah, in that league we playing together, I'm in third place, pal. Despite the fact that I lost Daniel Jones and Kirk Cousins, and it's a super flex league. Shout out to CJ Stroud for that one. I will say, by the way, speaking of Geno Smith, just how much of a disappointment he has been. There's another league that I play in, the Apex Writers League. I bring it up all the time. My team started really hot, was awesome. Some of that had to do with Zach Moss, but Geno Smith was my QB1 in that league, and I was like, I'm getting a little nervous about this. Somebody dropped Dak in that league, right? I think after the 49ers game, and someone got him on waivers, and I bid on him, but I didn't bid enough. And that is like the moment I look back on that season in that league. Like, it's just a good reminder. Sometimes, like, you gotta go aggressive, because if I had Dak, I'm probably in a great spot. But now at this point, that league, I'm toast. So it is what it is.
Frustrating. Yeah, as Barnwell points out, Dak has an 80.7 QBR since week 6. Nobody else is over 68. That's balling.
Not bad. All right, Dalton. Well, shout out to you for playing her today. We appreciate you sticking through. Excited to see what your Niners do. Now that you've only got that in your fantasy teams to worry about, no more Survivor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I will have something to get fired up for this week, though, because that's a big game. Obviously, if they want any chance of the 1 seed, they have to win this week. It is the tiebreaker, right? Head to head is a tiebreaker, so it's like a 2-game swing here for the Niners. So let's go Niners. Let's go, Brock.
Yeah,
good time talking football, Harmon. Good times, man.
Always, man. Good to talk to you. Hope you feel better soon. That is going to do it for us today. Jacob Gibbs from CBS joins us for the Viewer's Guide tomorrow for Week 13. Until then, we are out.